again. So Jerome Powell has just rugged markets. You've got Bitcoin initially breaking to the upside, heading into the FOMC meeting, now falling painfully out of this triangle pattern down over 2% on this day. We received a 25 basis point rate hike exactly as the markets were expecting, but the damage was done in the press conference. I'm going to break down exactly what was said, where markets are at right now, because literally as we were going through this, we received the statement which gave us our 25 basis point rate hike. Markets, you can see from this first yellow line, that's when the statement came out. Markets responded really positively. Bitcoin ran all the way up almost to 29,000, knocking on the door of 29,000. S&P similarly ran up nicely here, got it to 401, trying to get to 402 on the S&P, and then half an hour later Jerome Powell starts speaking and sends markets plummeting down. When Jerome Powell finally stopped talking was right here. Can you tell from the candle? Of course you can. Was when we posted low on this candle of 27,100. Since then, we've recovered a couple of $100 here on Bitcoin. No doubt by the time I've uploaded this video, it would have changed as well. But we need to decipher what is going on. S&P similarly gave up all its gains when Jerome Powell was speaking. Now we need to take a second to understand exactly what was said. The first thing to notice was in the statement, there were some changes to the wording, which was really important. As you can see here, he changed the wording from ongoing rate hikes. Normally here it says the committee anticipates that ongoing rate hikes will be required. He changed it to some additional policy firming. Now, what does this mean? This can mean various different things. Is it quantitative tightening? Is it more interest rate hikes? What is it that's firming policy? So he left that vague to say, hang on, maybe we're done with our rate hikes, which is positive news. Now, then we need to look at the summary of economic projections. And in the summary of economic projections, there were a few interesting developments. The first one, as we predicted yesterday, was that the GDP figure for 2024 will be revised down. They also revised down the 2023 figure by 0.1% as well. So they revised this very heavily and they revised this slightly down. The unemployment rate they notched down slightly. They kept it the same for 2024. The PCE inflation they notched up. They kept it same for 2024. But the main thing you're going to want to focus on is this. They kept their Fed funds rate for the rest of this year the same. So in other words, when markets are pricing in that we could be seeing a pause in summer and even a rate cut in summer, they're going ahead saying, no, we're plowing on. You're not getting any rate cuts this year, and we're still sticking to that 5.1. It's important to note, and we're going to come on to that when we talk about the press conference, that just over a week ago, before the whole Silicon Valley Bank and the bank crisis, we received very bad February economic data. And this is the worrying bit, because going into that, people were thinking, hang on, maybe we can even get 50 basis points. And certainly this could get revised up. So the only reason this wasn't revised up is because of the banking crisis. Now, even that, we were expecting this to come down slightly to show that they want to start cutting rates. Now, here's where it gets even crazier, which is another reason the market's upset. They didn't even put the rate cuts next year. So previously, they said our Fed funds rate for the end of next year, 2024, will be 4.1. They revised that up to 4.3. In other words, we're going to stay high for longer. So very interesting how Jerome Powell was trying to give this dovish 25 base point hike, but really there's a few other bits when you dig into it that are getting the markets a little bit spooked. If you weren't with us on the live stream, you would have known I pulled this up in between the rate hike and the press conference. And this is what I put up. I said, market volatility is 3 times higher during press conferences held by Jerome Powell than those held by his predecessors. And they tend to reverse the market's initial reactions to the committee. So we were green after the rate hike, and I said, guys, watch out, guys. Unless Jerome Powell does something different, he's probably going to bring volatility to the market, and we can reverse that. And that's exactly what we got. Now, it's not all doom and gloom. Remember, the market will try to form some footing now and digest the data they've got over the next set of hours. But also, we need to go into what did Jerome Powell say. I'm going to read up some of the sound bites from Jerome Powell. He said, our lending program shows ample liquidity is available, which is what we know. They're going to keep printing. He said that the labor market is still too tight. Again, we know that. We've seen the data coming out. Higher rates and slower growth are weighing on businesses. Yes, we know that. What are you going to do about it? He said wage growth has shown some signs of easing, which is true. We've seen that. Process of getting inflation back down has a long way to go, and it will be bumpy, he said. He said our projections on, this is crazy, our projections are not a plan. The path will adjust as appropriate. In other words, he's saying, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm making it up as I go along. He then touched upon the fact that he did, and the team members at the FOMC, they did consider a pause running into this meeting, which is again very interesting and shows that maybe the banking crisis is a little bit worse than we thought, even though he came out and tried to settle everybody. Interestingly, at the same time, and they do this on purpose, guys, Janet Yellen, the secretary, is the Treasury Secretary, was giving a speech at the exact same time as Powell, and she said, one of her statements said that the 2.5 billion they backstopped SVB with is only an indicative figure. They don't even know the final true cost yet. So remember when we said that JP Morgan said that that backstop could be up to 2 trillion, right? That whole program could be up to 2 trillion in liquidity being pumped into the market. It could be even more once we find out the final number that they're actually pumping into the market. He said a couple of weeks ago, we thought we would have to raise the terminal rate before the banking stress. That's just what we covered off, right? They thought they were going to raise that 5.1 maybe to 5.3. Instead, they just kept it the same. Markets were probably thinking maybe they would knock it down a little bit. In assessing the need for further hikes, we will particularly be focused on actual expected effects of credit tightening. Now, this is the interesting shift because up until now, the narrative has always been the same. Is inflation coming down? Has the job market showed some weakness? Is inflation coming down? Has the job market showed some weakness? Now he's got something else. Now he needs to take into account the banking credit crisis that we're now facing and the tightening. And that could tighten financial conditions for him. So that in itself could bring inflation down for him is what he's saying. And he might not need to then back that up with as powerful rate hikes and for longer. If you've made it this far into the video and you someday want to be able to read the markets, do technical analysis, trade as we are doing on this channel, then perhaps you may want to check out my free technical analysis from scratch course over on Skillshare. For those who aren't familiar, Skillshare is an online education platform. You sign up for a nominal amount each month and you get access to a wide variety of different courses. I personally use it to learn all sorts of things, from video editing to financial to using Excel and various other bits and pieces that you may want to learn. It's far better than YouTube on those elements because on YouTube everything is about retention, whereas with a course you can put things in a structured curriculum, and that is exactly what I've done with my TA course. It's completely free for the first 30 days if you click the link in the description, ijaz.uk/TA, to take advantage of the TA course. Let me know what you think about it and let's get back into this video. So then we go on and he says possibility of credit conditions tightening due to banking stresses offset higher rates, which is what we just spoke about. He said disinflation is absolutely still occurring because he was asked, at the last meeting you kept talking about disinflation. What's going on? He says it's still occurring. We are seeing disinflation, but there's still no sign of progress on the services side of the economy outside of housing, and we will have to come through softening of demand labor conditions, okay? He then said at a basic level, SVB management failed really badly. The supervisors saw these risks and they intervened. There are no broad weaknesses in the banking system. And that was the important bit, right? The only way, in my opinion, that crypto was going to fall, and we said this leading up to it, was if Jerome Powell could somehow convince markets that there's no systemic risk. Banks are okay, we're good, we're fine, right? Now, it's weird that I don't think the market's fully buying into this. We're seeing the markets fall here to the downside like we're seeing. And also, this is negative for Bitcoin because Bitcoin would run on the news that the banking crisis is getting worse, it's exacerbating. If we had a surprise pause or emergency cut, you could have seen Bitcoin really moving on this news. He was then asked about a soft landing and he said, yes, a soft landing is still possible. He's still holding on to that. He's still holding on to the fact that he wants to bring inflation down to 2%. And he did indeed say, yeah, it's made the soft landing harder, but it's still possible. So now let's jump into the Bitcoin chart. We're falling out of this triangle pattern. We've got to monitor this very, very carefully. And where is support? The first line of support I've got in here is the support from this period, the resistance from here, and we held some support in March of this year as well. Let's take a look, and that sets at 26,100. Failing that, we're going to get to 25,000, okay? And I've said for a while that 25,000 is a perfectly fine level for a retest. At 26, I will go ahead and nibble a little bit. If we get to 25, I will buy even bigger chunk. 25 is a really nice level for me, given that 25 was that resistance we were struggling to break through. We finally get the breakthrough, come back, have a retest. I'd love to have a nibble there, and on we go, we march, we reset our RSIs, and we can keep things moving. Now you need to be careful, right? Because on this daily chart, what you are seeing is some divergence. You've got price going up, higher highs, okay? And you've got lower highs on your RSI. RSI is now ticking over. So be very careful. We could be set for some sideways / downward movements here in the short to mid-term, i.e. a couple of hourly candles, some 4-hourly candles, and maybe even a day or two to the downside, bringing us back down to that 25,000 level. That's what I'm looking for. And it's perfectly fine. Look at our EMA ribbon. Bring out our daily EMA ribbon. It's sitting there at 25,000. Absolutely no worries whatsoever if it wants to come back to here and build some support. One thing we know, Bitcoin's in a far better position than it was just a couple of weeks ago and looking really, really powerful. To the upside, we can start to get some momentum. Then we're looking at, again, still I maintain the fact that that 29 to 32 level is going to be very important. I don't think this is going to be easy. Let's bring out the VPVR and you'll see this is not going to be an easy level to break through, but if we can, things will then look good. And then we've got another gap to fill, which is once we get to the other side of 32, there's a big gap to fill all the way to 37. One of the hardest FOMC meetings I've covered since I started investing. It was hugely confusing. Markets don't know what they want to do right now. Jerome Powell doesn't know what he wants to do right now, but he still manages to rug this market. He's definitely got a talent for that. We're going to have to sleep on this and see how does this play out. I will be updating you guys tomorrow. More important data coming out over the next couple of weeks, including GDP figures. We will be covering it off on this channel and watching how does Bitcoin respond. Smash some likes, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.